Good evening and welcome to National Matters. I'm Patrick Soko, your unusual host for this program, standing in for Pastor Moses Chiluba. Our program is themed Is Zambia headed in the right direction politically, socially and economically? And my guest today is Madam EDITH NAWAKWI, who is a seasoned politician as well as a Forum for Democracy and Development FDD president. Welcome to the program, and we are glad that you honored our invitation.
Thank you, Mr. Soko. It's nice that you could have us back on the air, and thanks to everyone in the studio. Good evening, Zambians. Good evening, brothers and sisters. It's nice to be back on Camnet, and it's your station. Tune in and let's have a chat.
Indeed, let's have a chat, and later on you will be joining us, our dear viewers. In case you want to interact with our guest today, you'll be calling on the number that is on your screen, as well as send us a text, a message. We'll be glad to just get your perspective. And those of you watching us via social media, we thank you, and make sure that you leave us a message on our Facebook page and tell us where you are watching us from. Now, to just get us started, first of all, Madam NAWAKWI, today we'll start on a different note. We are going to start with current affairs before we get into the specifics of other national matters pertaining to sectors such as agriculture and mining, where you equally have a vast experience and have been commenting on. So we are going to start with the current affairs. First of all, we have seen that the United Party for National Development, UPND administration, has pronounced itself that it is keen to ensure that the rule of law prevails in this country, and making sure that things that used to happen in the past are dealt away with. Now, we have seen you as opposition political parties in the country complaining that the country is experiencing a shrinking civic space. Why is that justification? Do you also share that perspective as FDD?
It's not just about sharing the perspective. Mm-hmm. It's about living in it. Today, I've just come from court. I went to listen in to the accusations levied against our former First Lady that she had stolen a car. I went to listen in to that and to support her. These are matters before court, but my own impression, and I hope I'm allowed to have my impression.
Isn't it going to be prejudicial?
No, it's not. I'm not discussing the techniques of the case. It's about the shrinking space. What you call shrinking space, I interpret it to say the lack of competition in politics. I find it very, very strange that at this day and hour, a state could cook up a case and hang on that case onto an individual. I'm one such example. I think you colleagues in the press this week, you did announce that EDITH NAWAKWI was indicted. And for me, it came as a surprise. Yes, I was arrested on this infamous case called the Felunas, which the government, through Hakainde's office, wanted to hook on my name. But you heard what followed up. Those people who had been involved, who were contacted personally by the president to go to Choma, came out and said that they were shocked that he was personally handling those people and wanted to pass it on to someone like me. I thought it was just about me. But this is happening all around. The state, instead of involving itself on matters which progress our nation, is involving in framing up citizens and abusing the legal system and the institutions of governance to inconvenience persons, either just to embarrass, like in my case this week. I was comfortably seated at my place. I just see that all over the internet, there was an announcement that Edith NAWAKWI is before court. And I was shocked because I'm a regular visitor to Chikwa Court, to the Magistrates Court, and I've been in the past been a suspect, sometimes as a witness. There are procedures which are standard. When the police arrest an individual, on the day of appearing before the magistrate court, and we normally start cases in the principal magistrate court, they will announce, on the cause list they would have said, Edith NAWAKWI, the people versus Edith NAWAKWI. They will announce that case because the prosecutor will stand up in the court and say, Your Honor, we are now calling the case of the people versus Edith NAWAKWI. And then they will say, is a suspect in court? And the prosecutor will say, yes, Your Honor. And they will motion to the suspect, who in this case would be myself in this particular matter, and I would go in the court. And then the magistrate would read the case and say, this case of the people versus Edith NAWAKWI, you are in the principal resident magistrate's courtroom. We are allocating your case to court number X. And then you leave. You bow and leave and go to the court that the magistrate, the principal resident magistrate has mentioned. You go to that particular other court where they have allocated the case. And they will still call you, the people versus Edith NAWAKWI. Then you say, Your Honor, and go in the dock. Then they will read the indictment. We are indicting you because you abducted Mr. Soko from Chipata. You beat them up. And do you understand the charge? And then I would say, yes, my lord, I understand the charge. Do you plead guilty or not guilty? I would say, not guilty, my lord. Then he said, okay, this matter comes up for hearing. I adjourn it for hearing on such and such a day. But in the case of the people versus Edith NAWAKWI here, they went to the magistrate court, the principal registered magistrate court, read my name in my absentia, allocated me a courtroom, and I don't know how the press got the documents. They were all over the place. But it was just a prelude to the fact that the government had heard that on Tuesday, the political women, including myself, were having a press conference. You see how naive they are. So they want to think they can divert attention. So I was extremely surprised because when I was arrested, I have the arresting officer who does the docket, sends it to the DPP. The NPA is authorized to prosecute. The prosecutor has to contact me. I'm the witness and inform me as to what date my case comes up because I'm the one who is the suspect and I'm in the hands of the police. But this is not happening. They are even changing the procedures in court. Now, what that tells me, Mr. Soko, is that I want to be very clear. I've been trying to figure out where are we as a people. And I said to myself, all of us have our past lives. When you regress my life to 1,000 years, you may find that I could have been Mary Magdalene. Or in fact, I could have been Rebecca or Rhoda. And I lived maybe in ancient Egypt. So it has come to my knowledge and understanding that, in fact, our current president, probably in his regressed life, in his past life, he was Herod.
But why do you say so?
Because we have a leader who is totally scared of competition. Herod was deeply, deeply scared of competition. That's why when the wise men passed through his palace and said, we've come to see a young child called Jesus, he says, Baba, when you go and meet him, come and pass by here. He was lying. He wanted to know where child Jesus was to go and kill him. You know the story. Herod was insecure, completely insecure. And his insecurity led him to hate competition. Hakainde Hichilema is extremely scared of competition, and that makes him insecure. And when a leader is insecure, he doesn't build up leadership. You find when you are watching the police officers acting, they are acting with fear. Because their leader is insecure, and therefore, when they do things, they want to do things which seemingly make the leader feel secure. Arrest EDITH NAWAKWI, arrest Luvinda. Now we can't even stop by a bus stop to buy water. They will say that you are having a public rally without a permission. That is the characteristic of Herod in Matthew chapter 2, verse 1 to 8. I invite people to read that and analyze the character of Herod. I'm not a pastor, but when you read it, you realize that we are living in Herod's time. Even when you go to the Acts of the Apostles, chapter 12, you will discover that the death of Herod was something spectacular. It was after prosecuting Peter and the other apostles who were trying to be in church. Peter was rescued from the dungeons. And, Herod calls people. He started saying that I'm the king. And they say, you are the greatest God on earth. And the angel got upset and smited Herod. That's how Herod died, with worms coming out of his mouth in his chair. But you see, the nation of Zambia is a chosen nation. The nation of Zambia is a nation that wants peace. And our leader is fanning insecurity, lack of competition, is fanning intolerance. And when there's intolerance, you make the state extremely insecure. Because I must say what I'm saying on Camnet in a public space. But if I dare go to Kamwala and say the price of minimum is too high, the price of fuel is too high, the police won't allow me to do that. So we are bottling the anger, we are bottling the energy, and that in itself is insecurity to the state, because poverty, poverty and deprivation and stress and lack of tolerance, which you are calling shrinking political space. That's space. That's the nice words you colleagues in the media make. But I can tell you what we are facing right now is complete insecurity of the person in the chair.
Now, my follow-up regarding that description that you provided, you suggested that there is fear for competition. Now, how would President Hichilema fear competition, given that he was in opposition for a longest time and he competed against various opposition leaders about 4 times or 5 times or so, and he eventually managed to win elections against the PF with all their resources on their hand?
I can assure you, if it wasn't for the rowdy cadres, PF did not lose. PF, in my view, gave this election to UPND. They didn't expect to win. If they had expected to win, you would have seen a plan of action for the nation. This is an opposition political party in the opposition, which had no plan. It was just a 10-point plan. Now you say point 1. Can you remember point 1 for UPND? Just to prompt my fight on corruption. So you fight on corruption by some chiefs delivering 1 million kwacha to their relative in a bag. You fight that. If my grandmother from Mugubudu had delivered this afternoon 1 million kwacha to my house to buy a car, it would be proceeds of crime. But for specific people, they can even go to the police and say, my grandfather gave me money, I bought a house or a car. It's not proceeds of crime. It is proceeds of crime for someone to drive an old car bought in 2015 and the police come and get it. But it's not proceeds of crime for you, Mr. Soko, to own a farm which belongs to Lima Bank, and it was sold to you, Mr. Soko, using a company which the state has given you to manage. It's not crime. It's not a criminal offense for some people to own whole estates in Kablonga, but it's a criminal offense for the former minister of mines to own 32 minibuses before he became member of parliament. You go and debate him, you go and do all sorts of things. You don't even go to the record. It's not a criminal offense for you because you are a president, Mr. Soko, not to declare your assets. You want to put a blanket on our face that you're a rich person, Mr. Soko, and therefore it's not criminal. So I think that when you say you are fighting corruption, for me, corruption is a cancer. You are not telling me that only the Tongas are corrupt, the Bembas are not corrupt, the Easterners are the ones corrupt, the Namwangas are not corrupt. No, we are a nation of 72 dialects or 73 tribes. And in us, there's no tribe. There's families. I'm a Zambian. I associate and have family with Tongas. So you can't come to my village and say I'm Namwanga, I'm Mabemba. No, like they say for all of us who come from northern at Mabemba. No, we are Zambians. And for the young people of today, you, Mr. So, if I follow 2-3 arrangements, you probably are married to a Lozi or a Tonga. So the young people of today know no tribe. The tribalists are those who were born before KK put one Zambia, one nation. Those are the tribalists. And that's why our first president was so scared of some of us taking the reins of power. The nation is now divided. These people, you say, how can they be scared of competition now because they were in the opposition? They were just praying to God that PF loses power the way they did. I think that even for themselves, they must be saying, how did we do it? So, and God is very, very careful. For me, I thank God that UPND got power because they were becoming intolerably violent together with the PF. They were being violent. So what would have happened if in fact PF had won? We would have seen bloodshed here because we were told people were fighting. You saw what happened in the elections in Southern Province, where cadres will walk into a polling station, scatter the polling officials and everyone. And God in his own mighty wisdom decided to give Hakainde the reins of power. Mwana akadilira muliro umupase azazi shokaeka. Apa banabwera no plan baba. Whether their only plan was 10 point, we are going to go to Washington and get funds from IMF. Zirikuni. No plan on how do you conduct international diplomacy so that the nation benefits. Munaona what happened. His president, 4 trips to America. Where's Joe Biden? Joe Biden is fighting in Israel. Does he know where Zambia is? If you ask him and say, Mr. Biden, where is Zambia? He will probably say Zambia is in South Africa or Zambia is in Nigeria. You see, you know,
but
we as a nation have been pushed to the corner because our so-called leader had no plan when they were getting.
Are you sure when the President Ichilema was walking side by side, Biden would miss where Zambia is?
I mean,
and the investments that are coming in the mining sector that we have seen.
I don't know who eats the copper in this country. Today, the issues on the table is food, medicine, education, roads, the basics. Even in the Bible, we know about dear Joseph, because Joseph was responsible for the granary of Pharaoh. But because these people had no plan, they get into office, they found huge stocks of maize from their predecessors, Patriotic Front. What did they do? No plan. Chimbwe, no plan. They just get in, export. Please, let's audit the fertilizer stocks. You saw what happened with the first season that they were in government. They said, no, we didn't deliver fertilizer in time because this wasn't our budget. Their budget brought misery. Their second budget is even worse. This is not a person without a plan. I was on this platform and I said, Baba, let's not depend solely on IMF. These people, we know them. They don't keep their promises. The minute I saw Hakainde Hichilema with his brother, President Tshisekedi, start to sign that they were going to sign off our minerals to the West, I said, oh, way hell breaks loose. I knew from the outset that if we don't deliver what they want, IMF will never come to the table. Don't listen to this issue about, no, the negotiations with the private bond holders. It's just a camouflage for saying Hakainde has not delivered on the promises that he made behind our backs. So you and I can see IMF as the platform. Let me tell you, negotiations are never done like that. There is something he promised. We know he promised LGBT, changing of the constitution. It didn't happen. We know he has promised mines and whatever. It hasn't happened. And they have read through him.
Are you able to substantiate that?
Yeah, I can substantiate. We all know that he was supposed to change the constitution and they have LGBT. They've U-turned on that and imprisoned the proponents of that. Let me say clearly, IMF money is pouring into Tanzania. Are you telling me that they can plan better than Zambia? It shows that the Tanzanian leadership has a plan. Ours has no plan, and the international community has read through UPND that there's no plan. So if you write off the debt, what are they doing? They're taking money, throwing it, say, to Constituency Development Fund. Let me just take the desk, for example. A desk is costing 1,500 kwacha per desk. The cost is roughly 1,300. The contracts are not being given directly to the woodworkers and carpenters in Soweto market or Chibuseko Baba. What is happening? The UPND cadres and members are the ones getting the contracts. And then they go to the woodworkers and say, produce this desk for 800. So the money is somewhere in the middle. It's not going down to the grassroots. Otherwise, you would have seen the villages getting better. So whether it's agriculture, whether it's anything, procurement contracts, the current procurement contracts, how they are being done, they are not saying, can you bring 20 or 30 vehicles? They give you 5, they give that one 5. It's small lots, which you won't notice, but at the end of it, the sum total is that they are giving each other contracts. And the international community has eyes, and they have seen. The international community have seen that this government is opaque, this government is not as corrupt-free as they propound. This government is not delivering goods to the people. You can go to the university teaching hospital right now. Go to GO1. God forbid, Mr. Sok. If you are sick and you need the surgery in GO1, they will tell you, bring iodine, bring cotton wool, and bring your bandage. This is the government of Mr. Hakainde Hichilema. And the international community hears. Who is speaking against them? Their best friend, the American ambassador. That's the one who is speaking against it. They've seen. They don't last long. We told him that we needed a local plan. And what was that local plan? I proposed that whatever we do, let us not touch agriculture. They didn't listen. He's saying that agriculture should be in private hands. They changed the list of beneficiaries. If you were on the list, Mr. Soko, you were with PF, so get out of the list, we'll put new people. And the whole thing is a complete sham, is a complete mess. Ilokapa, they are singing that there's fertilizer. Farmers have not received fertilizer. We all have relatives in villages. We get phone calls from all over the country. There is no inputs that are out there, and I personally fear as to what this nation will be next year. So, in the main, why would the government give bondholders more money by writing off a little bit? Who are the holders of bondholders? When you hear this story, bondholders, those bonds are held not just by foreigners. Zambians have access to those euro bonds. They are on the market. And some of the major bondholders locally, they are the same people. So when they don't negotiate better arrangements, so the others, the Chinese and the IMF and the World Bank, why? We give you money and you give to private holders. We want to write off. That's how we did it ourselves. When you get a write-off, you push that money to social services. You don't push that money which is available to pay private investors. No, it is never done. And they have seen it even in the contracts like the one like Vedanta.
Before you
it's a catalog of issues that are out there in the open. If you are looking from outside with a bird's eye view, you can say, how about that one? How about that one? And the sum total of that makes this government completely unbankable.
The other argument, Madam NAWAKWI, would be that these same bonds which the UPND is trying to restructure or work on were contracted by the PF, and they got them, and there's nothing to show for in terms of how the bond were used in the economy.
That's a narrative from UPND. I'm surprised, colleague, that you could push that narrative. Every government that starts, except the UNIP government. The UNIP government inherited, I think, 17 or 19 million pounds in the vote at independence. MMD inherited nothing, a debt of $7 billion. We didn't sit on our rulers and say, oh, Kaunda left him a debt here, so we can't do anything. It's Kaunda, it's Kaunda. No, we had a plan. I was the chairperson for the energy sector in the party of MMD. And they asked us in our committee to write programs as to what our committee envisages to do should we get power from UNIP. So myself and a number of other young people, we sat down, we crafted the energy sector policy of the MMD. Equally, if you talk about mines, late Dr. Matthias Mpande, may he so rest in peace, was chairperson for the Mines Committee. Late Kashita was the chairperson for the transport. So we had different committees of the party with political programs to be translated into government. And that's what you see. And that formed the platform on which we, as the second government, moved into government, what we are going to do. Late Emmanuel Kasonde, they crafted a program of what they would do day one should they get into office. And each one of us who had done programs, you saw us either, I was the first deputy minister for energy. The late Hambai was my minister, and later I became minister of energy. Our elder brother, Emmanuel Kasonde, was the chairman of the finance committee of MMD party. And they did the program. What do we do when we get into office? We're going to do restructuring. We're going to do that. What are we going to do while we are pursuing IMF? We are going to do 1, 2, 3 things. Mind you, there was no transport. People were queuing. You recall that? Maybe you were not there. But I'll tell you a story that there were days when you were working at Intercity. Ambassador funeral used to be at Intercity. You find people queuing, body viewing, you join the queue. You could not even see a matches. What Hakainde inherited now, he inherited infrastructure. We inherited an economy that had been abandoned by the international community for almost 4 or 5 years. You look, our first president was saying development from our own resources. They squeezed him and there was no money. But what did we do? We said, okay, UBZ is dead. What are we going to do? We can't buy buses for people. There's no money. We just introduced a policy directive that if you buy a minibus, it's tax-free. This is a private sector minibuses you see. We just, President Chiluba knew that there was no money in the economy. To hold $1 then was a criminal offense. You couldn't pass this airport with $1. Women started hiding dollars in strange places, and if they caught you, you are an economic saboteur under-seated, which is now the new deck. So, what did he do to get the dollars? He didn't start chasing people. No, where did you get money? What? President Chiluba stood up boldly and said, we have no money in this country. Zambians abroad, friends of Zambia, investors, come with money on your head. Tell me if you are bringing $20 million, $100 million, bring it to Zambia. It's a friendly place. We are liberalizing. And when you want to take it, no one will ask you questions. You saw how much money poured in before we could even start restructuring. We started restructuring in 1990. It was only effective completely when Mwanawasa came into office. It was a long period, by which time we had started the ShopRites. Zambia became a place where to go. Now, the behavior of Hakainde is responsible for chasing of investors, because he thinks he's attracting an investor this way. This side, he's telling you that to hold money is a criminal offense. And his Mr. DEC is busy chasing a few people. So people are transferring money abroad in suitcases or whatever form.
The Zambia,
so the Zambia we have now is a Zambia which is anti-investment for the local person and for the private person. And I can tell you, multilateral investment takes time to mature. The seed money is from the owners of the land and the friends of the land. The individual who wants to build a shopping mall, the individual who wants to build a real estate, something, and sees that Zambia is a good place. But you see what he did. The first thing he did, I hope you have seen that cab memo. They sat in cabinet. They decided that the Chinese were not friends of the West. Unfortunately, that singular decision where cabinet of Hakainde sat and decided that they were going to cancel close to $3 billion of approved Chinese projects because Edgar Lungu agreed on higher interest. How naive? How naive could you be? That money had already been negotiated. It was for projects like Masaiti Dam, projects like Kafue Gorge, projects like, big projects. It's a whole list, and the total of that is a lot of money. That money, our people could have been employed. However little the salaries are, at least they could afford the bag of mini meal. And that constituted circulation of money. When they're investing, the same thing is doing. He could simply have said, well, I'm from seeing Biden, I'm going to see Xi Jinping. And he would have said, Baba, sinaliko, pamene valungu benze kukongola ndrama, kapena sila naziwe kuchitan samsi. So please, can you bear with me? I'm a new person. can you please write off a bit of interest? Reduce the interest, it's too high. He could have said, reduce the interest, because between you and me, let's go to the IMF and the World Bank and say, actually, the Chinese government has even reduced the interest. We would have continued doing those projects instead of the situation now where literally there are no projects. Now they go to China. They canceled the 3 billion. How naive, Baba. How naive. How naive. Now they come back singing. Vatipasa $15 million. Not, yeah, Uluse.
The other argument, Madam NAWAKWI, would be that the Zambia Development Agency has been of the view that, to the contrary, the country has been actually receiving a lot of commitment from investors. Like in the case of investment pledges in the first quarter of 2023, they are saying that they had 173 investment pledges that were made. And in terms of 2022, they say to a tune of 3.8 billion was anticipated in terms of in revenue pledges. Isn't that goodwill and an economy being attractive, Madam NAWAKWI?
This economy is in a coma.
Why do you say so?
My brother, just go on the street. We used to see people selling sweets. A child would have 2 kwacha or 2 ngwe, 10 ngwe, 1 kwacha. These days, a minibus conductor today, if he doesn't have 1 kwacha change, they are being fought. There are serious fights on the minibuses. Ni pass 1 kwacha yang. It never used to happen. A conductor will say, "Am I? It's okay." Or the passenger will say, "No, my conductor, it's okay." There isn't that money. You are saying goodwill. The only viable goodwill is from you and me for my country. There's no other viable goodwill. This nonsense of going to beg this man called Vedanta Anwar, who has vandalized us, abused the nation, to beg him, he owes, Vedanta owes suppliers, private suppliers on the copper belt, over $3 billion. And today he says, I'm going to bring 200 million to pay suppliers. This is the same fellow who would go with his ZESCO to government and say, oh, for what we owe them, we are going to pay them $5 million. And the year passes, they've only disbursed 1 million. And someone in their naivety goes to beg the same person. The only business which is happening at Konkola copper mines now is dewatering of the mines. That's where these MMD friends are making money, because that mine, if you don't take out water even for 2 seconds, it's finished, it's done. So whether there's Vedanta or not, KCM has to do pumping. Now, the small pumping contracts is what they are sharing, which is a shame. And at this time, on the copper belt, you have less than 3,000 employees. So, one of the richest mines on the copper belt, developed fully, would be Konkola Deep. That's cash. And, anyone would have used that leverage to say, I'm a new person. When he is talking to the Americans, talking to the Germans, these are the projects which he would have said, we have a rogue investor in the name of Vedanta. We are looking for new investment because it will uplift the nation. Now, for me, when you say there's a pledge, let's say take the mines in Northwestern Province, the pledge to invest 1.2 billion. Do they bring that dollar and put in the treasury and start buying chocolate, sweets? No. The pledge to invest 1.2 billion, what you see is equipment going to the mines. And what's the lead time of investment in the mine? It's not less than 5 years. How much money do they discount at the Forex window to pay the workers? Now the kwacha is 24 to $1. How many dollars do these people cash in at Bank of Zambia to pay their workers? It's less than $10,000 they pay everyone at the mine. And you are busy dancing and no, could investment, could my pledge ya chani. The only pledge we can make today is that let us go farming. Let us go farming. I've been crying. I've even said, when I'm president, I will close the damn mines and just get every Zambian to be a farmer if I can. Not farming just to produce maize, mukupai, peanuts, fish. We had this very attractive story of fish farming. By this time, we should have gotten to some level. Do you hear any more about fish farming? They've shared the money. They've said, no, if they found a project which has been approved for fish farming, they closed it because this one must be related to this. It's a fiasco. So a nation which thinks other people must feed them, a nation which thinks that development will come from outside, a leadership which doesn't nurture its own people because of insecurity, because of lack of understanding of what a leader must do, is a lost nation. You see, copper, cobalt, gold, sugilite, emeralds, the list is long. Silver. These are our foundation stones. These are the stones that God gave us. These are our witnesses. And when God judges the leaders of this nation, he will say, Hakainde Ichilema, sit here on the throne, you are king. He will either smite him or he will praise him. He will say, what did you do to your people? And no one will need to answer that question. The stones themselves, copper itself, will answer and say, dear God, he gave me to Vedanta. And then God will ask emerald, because the stones are witnesses. The Bible said in the Bible it's written, when you cross the river, pick up the stones. These are your witnesses. So the suffering of the people of Zambia is being witnessed by the looting of our stones.
Do you think the same questions will be asked? Madam NAWAKWI, you were a finance minister. What did you do for Zambians?
Oh, at least I was honest. I went to Washington when they told me that the police were brutal. That's at a time when the Zambia police tortured. You remember the Black Mamba? They tortured my brothers, Dini Mungomba. The list is endless. Nguni, they tortured them. My predecessor for 2 years had been denying the fact that the Zambia police were brutal. You can ask the Honorable State Counsel Vincent Malambo. The two of us faced the State Department in Washington and told them that it is true what you heard, that the Zambia police are a brutal force in our country. And I said, because that's what the British left. So what we are looking for is investment into equipping Zambia police to make it a police service. That was point number one. Point number two, and by the way, when I took over, the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the bilateral supporters had cut support to Zambia, despite us as a country having met all the economic conditions. You see, these friends are saying that the numbers are adding. But on the governance side, which you are calling shrinking space, space is shrinking, intolerance is going up. How can you arrest the former Minister of Finance when she's in the hospital? And they expect that I don't have friends who are looking and say, because even their friends called me, Madam President, we are very worried. Are you okay? Their own friends in this country, the ambassadors, they called. So I said, no, I've just been arrested. I'm not going to get a treatment. I'm trying to make arrangements to get out. Can you do that in a normal country? You can only do that in a country where the leader is insecure. So the second issue that we dealt with, they had not funded Zambia from 1996, 1997. They just said, even if you've met all the conditionalities that we agreed to, we are not funding you because the police are brutal. And look, I could not deny that people are not being tortured here, because my own brother, Din Mungomba, was tortured. It would be imprudent of me and insincere to start saying, no, we have a very good police force. I said, no. I was before Ambassador Susan Rice and Ambassador Carson. I said, let me tell you, it's the truth. The Zambia police are brutal. And I had done a video of inside the prisons at Kamwala and Mkoweko. I demonstrated to them that the conditions are so dire. Look at this warden. She's walking ahead, followed by hardcore inmates who are on the death row. Is this policing? This is our policing in Zambia. I had done a video of inside the Skanze camp. When a policeman wakes up, they walk all the way to Central Police. At that time, I hope they have removed it. There was a Northern Rhodesian typewriter. I said, this is a policeman is also a prosecutor. He has walked. Look at where he sleeps. I was very transparent. This is where he sleeps. He has to walk down there, and his typewriter, NRG, and he's typing, the arms are going like that. So we need to give them modern tools. They advised me, those that I showed the video, they said, it's so bad, you don't show everyone. We understand. Minister, what do we do? I said, we need to fund the police. It was called a governance project. So that's why you see some facilities in this country where you don't think they just pop up from nowhere. The second issue was that we had bad Kaunda. You remember 1996? When our first president wanted to rerun again, we had banned him using the constitution. I said to them, it's true. He ran our country for 27 years. We had to fight to get him out. And you Americans and the British, you want him back? Are you going to help us? If you allow him to come in, what if our current president then, Chiruba, says that he wants to run for a third term? And my prophecy became true. So I asked them, my witness is there, we asked them, we said, when are we the young people? And we were pointing at myself and the Honorable Vincent Marambo. When are we going to be presidents of our country? You Americans, are you serious? You supported Savimbi, you went into Congo. Now we, the young people, have had a change of one-party state to a multi-party. I told them, I'm minister. I absconded, but I want to tell you, if I had a way, I was at the backbench, I would have voted for the vote, not for him to run, because he ran down our country. He put a one-party state from a multi-party. So then they understood us, and they agreed that we were going to go to Paris. That's how my first trip to go and negotiate was called a success. It wasn't the numbers, it was the governance issues. So Hakainde Hichilema doesn't even know how to negotiate. The director of IMF, Kinga Georgina, is an employee of the Minister of Finance. He's not an employee of the presidency. Now, I feel very embarrassed when I see my president negotiating with junior staff. Because normally these gentlemen from IMF, when they come to our country, they just negotiate with the Minister of Finance. They just go and pay a Kete score. If the minister says it's okay, they go and, Mr. 2-3 minutes they have tea and they go. We have had a very good meeting with the minister, the honorable minister. Now you find the whole president is telling you that he has a direct phone call to an employee, not his employee, but an employee of the ministers of finance. I want to hear a president saying, I've been talking to Justin Trudeau. Those are his colleagues. Those are at the same level as him. They are the employers of those boys and girls at IMF. So we've reduced and cheapened Zambia's governance to a level of below Minister of Finance. And when things fall apart like they've done now, where does he go? Because when things fall apart, he's supposed to call Xi Jinping. He's a director. Those are the board members. When things fall apart, he's supposed to call Biden, but they see him in the corridors, you know, tagging around with junior officials. So it doesn't work. So what's the role of the Minister of Finance? No wonder my elder brother is quiet. Do you ever hear the minister talk these days? He doesn't. He doesn't brief us. There's no money.
Well, our dear viewers, you are watching National Matters, and in studio we have the Forum for Democracy and Development President, Madam EDITH NAWAKWI, and we are discussing the topic that is themed, is Zambia headed in the right direction, focusing on issues bordering on politics, economics, as well as social matters in the country. In case you want to join the conversation, you are free to do so and give us a call and ask our guest a question so that we can get interacting. And those of you watching us on our Facebook platform, you leave us a message and we'll be glad to hear from you. Now, moving on, I would also want to, this will be my last perspective on politics, though we have tackled quite a number of issues when I ask one question. But we move on to the aspect of, we've seen that former president has opted, former President Edgar Lungu has opted to come back to active politics. What would be your overall analysis pertaining to this development? You just gave me a wonderful preamble, or not a preamble, rather, a background where you said that when you were young ministers, you did suggest to say there's no way KK was going to be governing this country, as if there's no any other person who can govern the country. So, in the case of former President Edgar Lungu, does it mean that he's the only one who can govern Zambia or take Zambia to paradise?
No, we are in a multi-party state. The issue of PF is internal to PF. And the travesties of UPND, the behavior, the intolerance to competition is what is brooding in this country as a negative mark on our democracy. For example, let me just give you a basis. I was a member of parliament for 15 years. In that house, 10 as minister, 5 as a backbencher. So I know the rules. We went there as novices, having had no schooling of what it takes to be a member of parliament. When we arrived there, the clerk took us through how you behave in the chamber, how you conduct yourself. And they said to us, there's a library, but you don't even have to be super intelligent. There's a director of research in the library. You just have a question on how does general orders work, standing orders work. They'll give you a brief. I mean, if there's one institution in this country which is well-resourced and prepared, even for the uninitiated, you can come from as far back as Mwenimpangala, having never heard the word legical. If you are interested, you'll be schooled in 2 hours at that place. The library is stocked from colonial days to today. They are up to date with journals. Commonwealth parliamentary practice is like a religion. So what we do in our democracy is a laughingstock in other jurisdictions. I thought what was happening in South African parliament was something which, for me, was beginning to irritate me. Until I saw the conduct of the Speaker of our current parliament. And why do I say that? Whenever a member stands to speak, there's a procedure. It's written in concrete black and white. And for those of us who were under late Dr. Naburiato... Should we all done or we pick this one? No, I need to finish. I need to finish because it's very important to discuss this issue. I hope our callers will be patient enough and maybe you can add a bit more time. Let me be very, very clear. Those of us who were schooled under Dr. Naburiato and the late Speaker Mwanamwambwa, we were always referred to a book called Eskenme on parliamentary practice in the Commonwealth. There's one issue which no speaker can overlook. The speaker has no ears, the speaker has no eyes, the speaker has no mouth. That's why when they are being brought for swearing in, they even resist to be sworn in. You cannot be in the chair and say, Mr. Soko, I've heard you. I heard you, you said it. How did you hear? Because you have no ears. That is put there so that the speaker is not biased. It can only be another member. For example, in this studio, it should only be someone from the technical team saying to me, who is the speaker, Mr. Speaker, wake up. Mr. Soko has misbehaved. Because you don't see, you don't hear, you can't make a decision on that. When a point of order is raised from the floor of the House, you cannot make a decision as a speaker. If it is about the misconduct of a member, you refer that to the Standing Committee on Discipline. That committee has cabinet ministers, has a leader of the House. It is a universal committee in the House to deal with the discipline and the privileges of the House. That committee is the only one which can recommend to the Speaker to fire you. People don't understand that. But we have Nelly Mutu, who is a lawyer. She wakes up and says, I'm firing you. Sit down, I'm firing you, I'm firing. Total misconduct. But she's not doing it because she doesn't understand the law. I can tell you, in this country, if there's one lady who is schooled in law, who is educated in law, who is smart in law, it's Nelly Mutu. She's doing it because Herod is insecure and therefore doesn't inspire security in the members that work with him. And you see them behave in a manner that will please Herod. That was the analog I brought from Matthew about the insecurity of Herod. Even a competent person like Nelly Mutu would behave totally out of step, despite what she knows. I mean, there have been speakers there who were not lawyers. They gave this country sterling performance. But she has completely lost it. And therefore, when we talk about these issues, I'll just give you one issue like that. There's a catalog of issues. It's the police, for example. The tragedy that we have faced is to go and wake up someone from retirement who is catching fish in the lake and say, come to be our Inspector General of Police. He has nothing to lose. He's not looking forward to a career. And therefore, does he have a need to train the people? And the people are so angry. Some of these things, I see them, the violence in the police, I see it that they just want to dent the name of their leader because they don't agree with what they are doing. So when they are coming to arrest you, TN, Naimwe, Latituma, you understand? Yeah. Things have fallen apart.
In the question of, in the subject of the Speaker of the National Assembly, there's been a perception that probably you as the women did not do enough. You could have also paid the case score. Did you also labor to share the knowledge that you have pertaining to parliament decorum? And also, Madam NAWAKWI, you've been a female aspiring president for a long time, and you've been fighting alone. And most of the time, you have been also referring to this subject to say, sometimes women themselves are enemies of themselves. Would you be the case in the case of the Speaker of the National Assembly, where you as fellow women are equally trying to pull her down?
I have never imagined that I was not happy about us having a female speaker. I've never imagined that. And you've never heard me mention Mrs. Mutu in the context that I've done. I've substantiated, I've said that disciplinary issues are usually deferred to the Standing Orders Committee. So she's out of step. Now, look, advice is given to people who seek it. It is not as though where she is, she doesn't have enough people to advise her. There's a clerk. The clerk is a professional member of the bench there. There's a research committee. Normally, if a speaker doesn't know, they can't make a ruling. But in this case, there was no point of order. That's the point I'm making. so and so, out, out, out. Like you are in a, not even in a kindergarten can you do that. It's like a preschool arrangement where you just chase people. It is never done. The etiquette doesn't require that. Look, I was in that house when you had the likes of State Council Eric Siluamba, State Council Malambo. If you didn't understand, you send a note across the floor. Can we meet in the corridor? There's usually a corridor around there. And they'll tell you, do this, do this, do this. When a person is speaking on the floor, you can't debate with the chair. What I've seen with this house, the chair involved in the debate. Look at the deputy speaker. It's a complete fiasco. I don't know what is happening. I fear that this is a West government in terms of corruption, and this is a West parliament in terms of management. So when you say, and you brothers, you always refer to the fact that women put each other down. When it is men, we don't say men put each other down. Here is a fundamental issue of misconduct of the speaker. And she has been advised. There is absolutely no way, anywhere, can you just evict. Even in South African Parliament, they've barred the Malema for 30 days. But it had to come from the Standing Orders Committee, the Committee on Privileges of the members. Every member, including the chair, has privileges and boundaries. There are boundaries which I'm not supposed to cross as a member of the House. But equally, you know, if you don't want a member to be heard, the desk there which manages debate switches you off. You can be shouting, order, Mr. Speaker, no one is hearing you. There are loudspeakers there. So the way the House is controlled is that if a member is unruly, they just switch off your mic. You can't be heard. There are several ways of managing the House. He will just be standing there, but he's shouting, no one is hearing him. But should a member from the floor say, Edith NAWAKWI is misconducting herself, the speaker is not supposed to rule there if it's expulsion, unless it's just a light matter of procedures. They will rule. If it is about discipline, it always has to go to the disciplinary committee. The speaker is not a prefect. The speaker is a chair of the House. And we have Eskin May, we have rules, we are in the Commonwealth parliamentary system. Now, these people, it's the same. If I'm telling you that the president is not supposed to negotiate with Georgina, it's the same thing I'm telling you that the House, you're not supposed to have expulsions like you at a primary school in Ndola Tech, where they find you with a phone and say, no, the whole class is fired because there was one phone in class. No. It's anathema. It's not done. That does not mean I'm saying that Mrs. Moti, as a lawyer, is incompetent. No. I have said, I prefaced that if there are lawyers in this country of good standing, she stands very tall. I'm complimenting her field. But where she is now, she's misdirecting her energies in a way that will destroy her impeccable legal record.
So far, what have you seen as being progressive under the UPND administration, Madam?
I don't know what is progressive. For me, what I wanted was to get out of my house, walk freely on the street. Now, when I walk around, for the first time, people are scared of the police. Because you see police now with masks like terrorists. You've seen them? They come to arrest you, they are wearing masks with eyes popping. A policeman is a friend of the people. Police and you, they live in the neighborhood in every precinct. When you are attacked at night, your best friend is a policeman. Now people are scared of the police. That's not progressive. When I go to UTH and I'm being told to have an operation, I need to take iodine, wool, and cotton, and bandage. That's not progressive. When my government imports GMO maize, I don't know if you've eaten this mini meal from ZNS. vazimayi ngati vapika nsima, it feels like it's not cooked. Sikupya. If you take that shima and put on the table, it's like it is not cooked. It's like all of a sudden Zambian women and men don't know how to cook shima. The mini meal is GMO. That's not progressive. I go out and see people who can't eat. That's not progressive. I see my president, 2 years, has made 63 trips, 2 per month. It takes you 3-4 days to pack, get to the airport. If it's 1 week, when you arrive, you are jet lagged. Oh, after 2 days, I'm going back to Zambia. You arrive, you are jet lagged. Then you are packing again. You are still in a jet lag mode. You are flying again. And you are back. The month is gone. That's not progressive. The president is not spending time thinking about how much people are suffering, not just in hospitals, in homes. There's no food. People are sleeping hungry. On the copper belt, it's a disaster. How can you ever think that this is a progressive country, a progressive government, when a child is dying purely because the policeman thinks you can't have 3 bags of mini meal? How? This is the same people, the same mouths told us the word smuggling is anathema. It's out of the vocabulary of their governing. They told us so. They will never refer to a business person selling mini meal to Congo as a smuggler. Who has killed that child because they are trying to curb smuggling? The ineptitude of this government, the inability of them to sit down and plan for food production is retrogressive. So when you ask me a question, what is it that is progressive? What is it that I see as progressive? I want the members of the press to sit down and list. If you're going to tell me that in the 27 years of Super Ken, he traveled less times than Hakainde Hichilema has traveled in 2 years, and that's progressive, the money which they take. Sure, we could buy iodine at UTH. We could buy bandage and cotton wool at UTH. This country, my country, Zambia, is a disaster. Because today, I had challenged the President Hakainde Hichilema, Minister Msokotwane and Kariadia to go to the cancer center and do scans. I had challenged them. And I said, Masebo and the lady ministers should go to cancer center and just do mammograms. Because when we talk, you, our friends from the fourth estate, you think that we are deriding our friends. There's not a single machine working there. The misdiagnosis of people in this country is what is causing death. There are no machines. Modern medicine is not about, can I check into your ear? Modern medicine is about putting a person in a machine and checking what is wrong. In this country, in this nation, I'm so embarrassed that a minister could go to China and go to get 15 million kwacha to buy equipment for surveilling you and I. I'll take that 15 million kwacha and buy a CT scan or buy any other scan. 15 million kwacha can go a long way in buying equipment for UTH, Chilenje, and Ndola or something. But these people, their thinking is warped. Their thinking is in the past. It is not modern thinking. Because how on earth can you ask the British High Commission to give you 1 million for anti-corruption fight when your hospitals have no iodine? If you had told High Commissioner Woolley to source diagnostic equipment with that 1 million, he would have done what Napoleon could not do. But their focus is just about fighting you and I. I mean, you can go to China and ask for surveillance equipment for the police, for intercepting telephone communication, this day and age. I will switch into another platform. There's Button, there's other platforms. I don't have to be communicating with anyone on Zambian platforms. If you think I'm going to communicate on MTN, when you have already told me that you are going to intercept my phone, you must think that I'm very down. It's not possible. The point is, the same governments, Her Majesty's government, the British government, United Kingdom government, His Majesty's government, they're the same people who've built us Chirenje Hospital in the past, Kanyama. They gave us facilities. You go to Ireland, you go to Japan, but it takes leaders to ask that these are the priorities. But if you think that your priority is to give your assets to Vedanta, they see through you and say, oh, he's working with Vedanta, they funded their campaign. Sorry, the numbers are not adding.
Well, we are now going to be taking your calls, our dear viewers, in case you want to engage our guest. At the number that is on your screen, you can equally send us those messages we want to hear from you. We are discussing issues bordering on Zambia's political, social, and economic situation. And in case you have a question, you are through to give us that call, and let's get interacting this evening. And just also a follow-up would be that when you opted to go into an alliance with the PF, Madam NAWAKWI, you also campaigned against President Hichilema. And the UPND have been of the view that, let's say, okay, let me take it in the case of the Bible, since you opted to go the best way. We have Herod. And you described yourself with about 3 names. One of the names I would recall is the name pertaining to Madam Magdalene. That's Maria, mother to Jesus. So now, the question would be, is the mother to Jesus not happy that Herod wanted to kill the child?
I don't understand that euphemism, but I want to correct one thing. We were never in an alliance with PF. We helped PF campaign. Because according to us, especially me, I knew Hakainde. I knew that he had no capacity. Let's face it. You forget that the one I was with an alliance with was Hakainde Hichilema. You forget, you colleagues. Maybe it's too long. 2005 to 2006, I was his vice president in the campaign. So I knew him ab initio. And I had no confidence in his capacity. During the elections and after. Because if I had any confidence, if he was a leader, the 3 of us could have been the ones taking over from Wanawasa. But he had no leadership capacity to unite even the alliance members. I could see divisions. I'll tell you something which maybe people don't understand. We had agreed that each political party would take 50 seats. FDD was pushed to the limit. Hakainde kept on saying, you can't win that. But it was agreed. It was agreed that we have 50. So 50 is mine. You can't come to mine and say, give me 20. I ended up with 32. Coupled with that, there was a lot of divisions. Who was going to stand where? It was a lot of arguments. So there he was. He didn't win. So when you say that I was in alliance with PF, no, I wasn't. I just realized that I was not running. Between the two, the better one was ECL.
With
the
tag of the PF, which they had pertaining to.
Yes, I think that if he had won, we could have told him down as partners that, listen, I think you have to change this. Even them, they've come to realize that what put them in the corner was the behavior of their members. And on that same issue, I didn't conclude as to why ECO came back. The ones who pushed ECO to come back is UPND themselves.
You are through to National Matters. Good evening.
Good evening.
Your name and where you are calling us from?
This is Mr. Arake.
Mr. Arake, you can go ahead with your contribution, sir.
Thank you. My question is direct to our guest there. It is EDITH NAWAKWI, aka Maria. Madam NAWAKWI, it seems like you are a bitter person. You started reporting the message, and the message preaches about life. Now, according to the way you are coming out, you are a bitter person, you don't understand. If you are any problems with the current president long time ago, please learn to forgive, because one day God is going to ask us questions, why did you hate your friend? Secondly, this issue you are talking about the debt swap. It is your fellow ACL who contracted the state. And it's the state for that, if for you, the ones who contracted the state, you are the one who are celebrating instead of encouraging the current government how to go about it, because you have been there before. Then lastly, are you encouraging the ECL to come into political arena? I was thinking him could have retired completely so that if there is any problem, the current president and these other politicians would learn to him. Now, since he has come to this game, what is your take? Thank you.
Thank you very much for your contribution. You too can join the conversation and give us your perspective or your questions to our guest. We are hosting the FDD President, Madam EDITH NAWAKWI, and we have our previous caller there with 3 questions. You did take note of them. He mentioned the other aspect of you forgiving and suggesting probably you may be bitter, and the other one is on date and also attributing it to the previous administration. There's also another aspect of former President ECL. Your take on that?
First, to characterize me as bitter is a qualitative analysis. That's his opinion. I can't change that. I'm grateful for the call. But each time I discuss, and I actually am very clear. I don't say Hakainde Hichilema has done this and that and that. No. The issue of corruption, I put it clearly on the table. It cannot be an issue of bitterness. I have said, if for him, while he was the CEO of Grand Tonton, and I, EDITH NAWAKWI, appointed Chris Mlenga as the receiver and the subsequent liquidator of Lima Bank, his colleague, it is impropriety for the colleagues at Grand Tonton to sell each other Lima Bank assets. That's what I've said. And therefore, if it is corruption, then, which is abuse of office, he was the CEO at Grand Tonton, I EDITH now, and that's what people don't, you just don't go and say bitter. We have information which we need sometimes to keep away from you. I'm the one who appointed Chris Mlenga under my seal to look at possibility of receivership of Lima Bank. They came back to me and said, no, it was beyond repair, we do liquidate. And what happened is what you see now. Now, when I mention these issues and someone says, oh, you are lying. He called. I was on Hotel FM. You are lying. I'm going to sue you. And he sued. And he was asking me for 3 million. Look, I was Minister of Agriculture, and I knew that there were properties in Kalomo and Kabwe which were not accounted for. And therefore, at that point, because I was the Minister of Agriculture for a short time, I left it to someone else. I got interested to find out what happened to those assets, because I know someone has 16,000 hectares in an area which was funded, and these assets were mortgaged to Rima Bank. So you ask him who removed the mortgage. How come you have that? Is that bitterness? This is a person who is giving you the slate that is clean. You ask him, how did you get your money? It's education. Am I not educated? Am I not speaking English? I went to Imperial College of Science and Technology. I'm very educated. I've traveled extensively, more than him. That's why now he's catching up to travel 62 trips per year. So it's not bitterness. These are facts. If it is good for imbwa kuluma galu, na galu chinkale bwino kuti yaluma mbuzi. So if you say, Edith NAWAKWI, you are bitter, I would want to explain to you that there's no bitterness, there's no room, because that's a description, that's how you see it. And I see mostly the supporters for my colleagues, they do that. Bitter, because Chani, Unaliko University. No, me, I left university way before the young man came there. Debt swap, we need to advise him. Musokotu ane. Kariadia, they were our tutors on campus. They were our tutors. He has the educated with him. But Mr. Musogotwane was in these governments, and so was Kariadia. So what's new? I was expecting that when UPND takes over, I would see new blood there. But he's gone back to the archive to pick the people who were there. For example, you say, PF was corrupt. Who is giving up Vedanta, the mine back? Mr. Kabuswe. He was mayor for Mufrira or whatever it is. He was PF. So, it cannot be Lungu is corrupt, but Kabuswe is not corrupt. It doesn't make common sense to me. When you say debt swap, the point I'm making is that it was a folly for cabinet chaired by Hakainde to cancel approved projects from China, because that's already a bird in the hand. And then you run to the West, you find there's nothing, you sit down, oh, we made a mistake, now you go back, hey, arigato, arigato. You come back with 15 million and you are dancing, and that is not even for something, it's for the wrong things. You see, it would have been much easier. Our friends from the East, they always love Zambia. And let me tell you, at the time that I was Minister of Finance, China, Russia were not members of the Paris Club. So I was required to negotiate separately with them for the loans to be, for the debts to be written off. We agreed with the Matratros, but they could not sign on until I agreed with Russia. There was one issue with Russia. That issue was that the MiG-21s which came to Zambia from Russia had been sent to Israel for repair. It's never done. And then the Russians said, you want us to write off the debt. When you get the change, you pay for the MiGs which they are repairing in Israel. That was a big issue, my dear. The Chinese, we had gotten money under Katik. This is their aeronautical company. And they wanted to be paid. We have some planes at the airport, you see those old planes. Those were taken under UNIP. This issue of saying, no, Lungu left money. Every government lives in Congole. There's no country which can develop without debt, but what type of debt? And if you accuse me that I'm just sitting, the challenge that we have is that here you should be beaming on the screen that this is what you said when the Eurobond was borrowed. And may I remind the nation what I said. When the second Eurobond was borrowed, I said, and may I quote myself, I said, the late minister, my elder brother, may his soul rest in peace, Alexander Chikwanda, ABC, I said, the minister is running us downhill in gear 8. I said that. I said at this point in time, where we were, that point in time, we did not need to borrow from the commercial window. But you like to forget everything because EDITH is bitter. No, I am always there to advise, and I did advise. And I want you to know that when I said that, the minister used to call us for, all former ministers of finance, who used to call us for lunch, we sit, how are we doing, we discuss. When I mentioned that the late brother of mine, and I was one of his favorite ministers, mind you, when I became a young minister, he was advisor to President Chiluba. I drew a lot of wisdom from how government runs. I would go and sit with him. He literally says, this is not how you write a cabinet memo. Call your staff. Let's go through it. Before I even take it to cabinet, I always took documents to him. May I be advised? So I'm not talking about my late brother as someone just, this was someone who was very interested in what I did and how I progressed as a politician. So when I saw that they were borrowing from the commercial window, I took it to task. I went to his office, and that was our last communication. I remember meeting him at some place. I tried to greet him. He didn't want to greet me because I was very clear that you can't borrow Euro bonds. And I think you saw that after that, they started even investing. The money went to, I think you saw projects which came out of PF borrowing. For the bilateral borrowing from China, you have seen. We could have had more. Now, right now, Hakainde Hichilema, if he hadn't cancelled the agreed loans, all he needed was to renegotiate the interest. If it was too high, he just needed to renegotiate it. When I went to China with Katik, they were very hard. I discussed with the minister. I was there for almost 4 or 5 days. And until they agreed to write off the Katik loans. And then the Minister of Finance then graciously asked me, Minister, what else can we help Zambia with? Instead of coming back with 15 million, I came back with a complete kit for Zambia National Service. I was the first one to equip Zambia National Service because my perspective is rural development. I said, since we don't have money, if we have equipment in ZNS, we can just buy fuel, they can open up NAWAKWI and all these areas. Please, sometimes try to congratulate this young lady. She thinks, and if, how can I go to advise people who are hounding me out of my father's hospital, UTH? I'm sick. The doctors want to treat me. 5 policemen come to arrest me. I'm discharged. I go home. 6 policemen at the gate from 05 to midday. And you want me the next day to call him? No, sir, I want to advise you. Let me tell you, we have a deep structural problem in this country. And the structural problem that we have is lack of production. Now, Dr. Karyadia, Dr. Msokotwane, they want to solve our structural problem using monetary policy. It is never done. It will not succeed.
We'll start from there, that point on monetary policy. Let's pick this call. You are through to National Matters. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you?
Fine, and how are you, sir? Your name and where you are calling us from?
This is Chanda from Kasama.
From Kasama, Mr. Chanda. You can go ahead with your contribution, sir.
Madam Nawakwi, how are you?
I'm fine, Mr. Chanda.
I think we have lost Mr. Chanda. Is he still there? Hello? Mr. Chanda, do call us back, and we wanted to make sure that we hear from you. And let's pick it up from there, Madam Nawakwi.
The question was that we had said Kaunda can't come back. When are we going to be leaders?
Yes, that's our
President Lungu had retired. He reported to everyone. He wrote a letter that he had retired. You know, I tell people that, you see, his coming back is a creation of Hakainde Hichilema. From the day he left the State House, he's been humiliated and harassed on a daily basis. Even today as I speak, he was in court. And you can feel the air.
Don't say that it is the rule of law, madam.
What rule of law? To commit, like in my case, you commit a felony. This feluna abduction is something that Hakainde himself did. Then you come to the public and say, it's EDITH NAWAKWI. Is that the rule of law or the rule of the jungle? Now, when President Lungu left, he has been telling us, in a next retire part-time. The officials in his party say, please, retire. They were even paying him retirement. The government was paying for a house. That is a clear sign that he had retired. But they keep on saying, no, tell us if you have retired. Tell us if you have retired. Now, the worst thing is what Hakainde did. He goes and he pays for Miles Sampa to have some fake convention. In any case, when they were getting a notification for the police, they said they are having a Christmas party. That place was policed by state security and police officers from the so-called paramilitary division of State House. Now you install Sampa. Now, a convention, the way I know it, and almost all political parties have come out of MMD and UNIP. A convention, the way I know it, members of parliament have to be there. Tell me how many members of parliament were there. Councillors have to be there. PF has over 800, I think, councillors. They were not there. They were not invited. So now the president is the one who is saying, Mau Sampa, continue. Lungu's coming back. I liken it to a snake running into a hole. And then you take a stick, you start poking it. It will come out and bite you. So now they are like this. They are scared. Lungu has come back. Who is he talking to? Are you the running mate? They are not sleeping, which is good. And for the current mayhem and insecurity of the state and the governance issues, I think that he doesn't need to retire now. He needs to, he can run, everyone can run, we can compete, but I can tell you, Hakainde Hichilema doesn't even need Lungu. I always say, the way the economy is right now, even if you dress a cow or a goat and say, compete with UPND, they will lose.
Hello, you are through to National Matters. Good evening.
Yes,
hello? Hey, I'm quite Mwabombeni. Today, I'm not Mkwai. Badani mretu mina kuisa kuma saiti okay kuti mwakonkanya hapo badani
enda mkwai mlishani kuma saiti kwesuku
you can go ahead sir.
The TV is on.
Mr. Dan, are you able to turn down the volume of your TV set because we are getting feedback here? Hello? I think we've lost him. So make sure that you turn down the volume of your TV set because feedback is not good for ears. So make sure that you do that and make sure you also have enough airtime so that you can have a conversation with us this evening. Now, moving on, you were explaining. Okay, you are through to the program. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening, my brother.
Yes, your name and where you are calling us from, sir?
You are speaking to prominent lawyer from Marapoti, Lusaka here.
Prominent lawyer?
Noel.
Noel, okay. Mr. Noel, you can go ahead with your contribution, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mama. EDITH NAWAKWI.
Good evening, Noel. Noel who?
Prominent Noel.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Mama EDITH NAWAKWI Muriro. Ngatuamono kwa mwewa nakatenga mwaima. Mwewa kutufiara, mwewa kutusunga. Isitwachi kwa tufarifa. Ububu teko mama kainde itiremba na kututekera kumunga kwa. Mamule. Abantu batura ilokuba tukalyokunga kwa kite kwacha. Bantu teko mama itikacha kwa mungu wanu bakora. Bare imorupia. Batoro kwa tibyo eleza patuo kwacha. Muratu wako bati bareti tarungu naba na ubari bakora. Bare benja mali kama tumba. Batoro kwa tibyo zaika batu wanda kite kwacha. Usheza pintu turatu lero. Batoro kwa mutango ama local connections zoba kwa toba kainde ikirema. Wakatupera dola ikesa mapatu matana. Ero kuti wakatuombera kumatena wazi. Kifotina wazi ni shitimtia wama Mzambia. Bata kumona. Eto tuamona mama takwe basi. Teko wano wasi waika pita. Nangula maika sana mauma na kapira bapie. Unatuwako watesi katika kwa nungu tadele chapame soyo. Nomba, teko ulipomayo. Na alisa na papa kuyuza rejo. Vayemo piva kunto lukane ukawacha. Vayela mneno kuyuza kwe basi. Kifa chama membazi lesu. Ewa pokele na sisi kule ina mafyuzi ama pasari na fionse. Inena shoka wa sisi kule ya kumayalena Zambia. Keba yokiingia. Noma, ushoka kule ya likuisa. Na mwaronesho kama tihuo flow. Mwarata kupati wakainde semana wano kanunganua Corruption Commission. Uliamu shikutu walikoye watuwele kani wakone na sales minister. Baya kumacha ili bakumane chola charu pia. Ishana tuwa kushokoa tinga iwa chenja kwa ulaka ripotu wa kumane chola charu pia. Nipe soko tule ili rapa. Wapresident ya kinimu tumilafoni. Dala ndokwa tima kalenda. Dama kompeni ya limo dama jari. Baka tipamu akamoka kipena mwewa tipakua desa na uchakaso tuwa. Ushati kile kitaba kainde chile mama yoko atinga. Baka kubemba na diruskula tukane nzele yomo alekonoka. Iyo chama na shanuko. Nishinipe soko tule ili rapa. Ushati mbachi washuka wa presidenti na ushati. Dero tule baromboko wa jamena kwemba wa suke mbakilo wa inapa kweka. Noko sita dinai wa adele wa kainde tunokwa. Noti wale sitenga watu wakemba na dibara kawele tuke mse kwa kemba. Pijabane che.
You can wind up, you can wind up. You can wind up, Mr. Noel. Mr. Noel, you need to know when to wind up. I think we've gotten your point, and you were just now repeating yourself. Mr. Noel is most of all agreeing with most of the perspective you have brought out. So I don't know if you are commenting to Mr. Noel or we can proceed.
I was just concluding when the phone call came that we have a structural problem. There is no production. In a normal economy, you don't get the governor of the bank to increase the reserve ratio when there is such structural problem in terms of production. This is why you've seen Minister Msogotwane just keep quiet, because he has no tools to play with. He can't give you fertilizer, he can't buy medicine. There is no fiscal policy that the minister can implement, because the monetarist at Bank of Zambia is being told, do something. The kwacha is sliding. So now even Dr. Kariadi has run over the policy, monetary policy instrument. I want to state clearly that you cannot sort out a structural problem with a monetary solution. Where we are now, we are in a trough. And all economies do get to this low level. But it's clever ones who get out. And I'm worried that Hakainde has no solution. That's why he needs to go out. If I could make suggestions, is that we cannot resolve our current problems either by going to Georgina at IMF, begging this way, getting pledges. No. The current problem is a structural problem of lack of production. Of what? Food, emeralds, sugilite, and all that. What I'm asking the president, the one who they say I'm bitter with, is this. To show that I'm not bitter with him, I want him to cancel all trips abroad. Get ZNS to Luapula with the tippers and graders and the diggers. Let us dig Sugilite. Let's go to Masait. Let us dig emeralds, because in the first quarter of this year, KGM auctioned $44 million worth of emeralds on the international market. It was online. Now that was the first quarter. Now we are going to the last quarter. If they publish everything, maybe they have already made maybe even $200 million. You understand? Dollars. $200 million times 24 nizengati sunga pendi. Kuti wambo kwanshika power ya Africa kuchipata. So it's a lot of money. Now these people are abusing our God. This is why you see me, you can see that I get very, very unhappy when I know what the solutions are. There's no way I can have a president dancing around with Kajojina Uko. When in fact we have God at Kaseseri, which people are stealing and taking to the airport, and I'm being told that this is state security. My stones, my witnesses are state security when they are stolen by non-persons, transported by non-vessels. What is secure about God being mined in Mumbwa, or in fact from these mines? Because when I was Minister of Finance, the production copper was very low, but we could sell cobalt. Now I'm being told that no, some useless mining expert says, no, some mines don't have cobalt. Cobalt is a Siamese twin of copper. Well, I'm not a mining engineer. Right now as I'm speaking, Kabuswe, and I want to challenge him, should bring him here to tell the nation how, as Minister of Mines, they have given 120,000 hectares of land in Mpika for gold prospecting to a company called Unicorn from Canada. And there's a Canadian of Asian origin prospecting for gold in my village in Mpika Mwanchiturika Kwisoko. Where is Sixtus Mlenga? He's in Wapula. Where are the mining engineers? We have a department of geology geology at the University of Zambia. We have geologists all over who are our people. Can't we be a bit smart? But you can only be as smart as your leader anyway. But let me take the example of President Museveni. When the British told him that there is no oil in Uganda, what he did was he says, "Come here, come zwa." He chased them and then said to the university, "I want 4 engineers, bring them here." These young men, send them. One of them should come back as a petroleum engineer, one as a petroleum geologist. And when they came back, he said, "Can you supervise the exploration?" That's how you found that now Uganda is in production, I hope, of oil. Then they've told President Museveni that the refinery is unviable. He says, "Kamzwa, kamyoko." He says, "But am I saying that it should be viable? I want to supply cheap oil to Uganda." Now you, Kabuswe, you can section of 120,000 hectares of land in Mpika to a Canadian company to look for gold. Even me, I can buy a gold prospecting tool from South Africa. You go online. Those things are there. You just go around the seismic and you can tell almost 60 meters where gold is. But we don't like ourselves. And that's why for me, you can tell me everything about Hakainde Hichilema. He seems to dance to the tune of the whites and the foreigners. And for me, that I don't accept. Second to that, the minister for Muchinga province, he's sitting there in Mpika, Chinsadi, that's the headquarters. So, and they allow Tanzanians to come and start buying gold in Mpika. Me, I come from the border, honestly, God forbid. I can't even go to Sumbuanga or Iringa to buy a bag of rice. We wait for it at the border, whether it's rice, beans. We wait there. There's a lot of gold in Tanzania. Tanzanian people have become rich of gold and Tanzanite. You can't. President Magufuli says, hey, the thieves in Tanzania are the same people who are being sent to the mines to do a size of emeralds. Look, you can buy Tanzanite from Tanzania. Now, here we wash the emeralds and send them off. President Magufuli and the current president of Tanzania have said the minerals for Tanzania are Tanzanians. But you, Minister for Muchinga province, you come to Muchinga, you are entertaining Tanzanians buying gold in Mpika, and you tell me that a leader in this country must go begging. When he goes begging, I also go begging. My heart is begging. Every child is begging. Just the gold, the suglite, the emerald. We don't, 200 million is what we are begging the IMF for? Honestly? And you're telling me state security for someone to steal my minerals? But it's not state security for you to section of 120,000. And wrongly so. Because the procedures for getting these licenses are that you go to the headmen, you go to the chiefs, they give you a tenement. But in this government, because of corruption, they give Unicorn a license from Lusaka and then go to the chiefs and say, sign here. Some chiefs are signing, some are refusing. And it's not correct, it's not right, it's wrong, it's corruption, and that's why I'm saying Hakainde Hichilema, by the time he leaves, he will be the most corrupt president because of activities like this. Because as my leader, he should fire Kabuswe and say, how did Unicorn get a license? How are people in that area? Now, if they are looting in Mpika, they are looting at Kasensedi, I don't know how much cobalt Kansanshi is producing. Some so-called mining expert says Kansanshi doesn't have cobalt. Then they are not declaring it. So it's a mess. I can't have my country begging for 200 million from IMF, which we can make in 1 week, if we have leaders who love this country and they don't love their pockets and their stomachs.
Let's now check in our inbox if we have some of the messages that have come through this evening. So we have, please, ma'am, people are dying with hunger in compounds. Please do something, speak for us. They are even failing to go to school on empty stomach. Yours, Albert Musanje from Kamwala South. Then we have Madam NAWAKWI, you were finance minister. Did MMD give our children free education, employ 30,000 teachers, Chinese rehabilitating Tazara, CDF raising it from 1.6 to 27, it has to be 28 million kwacha and more. Is that not good, great, or is that not great planning? That's what is asking us. And we also have another one, Madam NAWAKWI, that's from EJ Halawa Luwansha. It says, Madam NAWAKWI, may you also talk about the failure of PF, which made the HH government difficult to operate. Remember, PF promised the people of Zambia one changing Zambia in 90 days, more money in people's pocket, lowering tax, more jobs, more jobs. So promises will never end. Where has the money gone? You received from the sales of mines as Minister of Finance. Those are some of the questions. We have another one. Good evening, President EDITH NAWAKWI. In the foremost, I would like to congratulate you the way you have articulated some of the issues which are affecting us as Zambians. Now, my question is to you is that if you had won the election in 2026, how would you implement the CDF policy? MD from Ndola. You can give me other messages? Okay. So those are some of the messages that are coming in our inbox. Are you able to respond to those?
Yeah, I think that first and foremost, you can talk of everything good. The only time you are called a parent is when you put food on the table. You can tell children, no, I was in the office, I was working the whole day, come home empty-handed. You have nothing to show. They will think you're a mad father. This is what is happening here. They talk about CDF. I said from the outset, the people in UPND, their party cadres get a contract, then they go and subcontract it. That's not transparent. So they are funding themselves. It's a window for siphoning money for their party. And when you ask me as to how I would implement CDF, I have always said, read the FDD manifesto. It's clear there. In fact, this is probably where they borrowed it from. We are the people who in MMD introduced the Constituency Development Fund. Yes, there was not enough money. But now, when you siphon everything and take to my village, even in Nakonde, the hospital has no blankets, no money. This UTH here, brother, if you go there, you have to carry your blanket. If you are admitted, because it's an emergency, there are people around UTH who are selling vitenge, so you can put on your bare bed. At least Lungu left mattresses and beds there, and medicine, and it was clean. You can say everything about Chirufia. Chitalu Chirufia, the former Minister of Finance, of Health. At least he was present in that hospital. You got there. Even if there was no medicine, you got a prescription, the hospital was clean. You know what is happening today? If the president could stop flying like a butterfly, go and see what is happening in UTH, I would congratulate him. In fact, I was saying he should tell ZNS to go to these. You know, we should do drastic measures. This is an emergency. When I'm talking like this, Mr. Soko, I'm a leader. I'm a former minister. I've lived through Captain Solo. That night, they were passing through government. You know the road where there's government house, eh? Mm-hmm. My residence was Chaplain Cottage next to the vice president. My dear, when they are making announcement, they are going down the road. You even feel that, was it a correct time to be born? Because they were announcing that every minister is going to be arrested and killed. It's not a good feeling to have a failed state. My talking like this inspires people to know that there's a future for this nation. That God himself has kept us together for almost now 60 years. When we see elements amidst us who are trying to create conditions for a failed state, all of us should get angry. Because I don't want to be a refugee in Congo. I don't want to go to Zimbabwe. I love sleeping in Lusaka. When I wake up, I know there are no bullets on the street. Although hunger is now taking some of our children with it. But you can't have it any bad. Time has come now to stop this rubbish of when someone is on air. Oh no, you were there. Yes, I was there, but I'm not here now. Their argument is synonymous to the fact that if you bought a house with a leaking roof, because the previous owner didn't repair the roof, so you sit there and say, oh, the one who sold me the house left it with a leaking roof. That's the behavior of UPND. I'm telling you, PF was taken out because people wanted better. So don't continue to say, it's like a husband saying, Now no, my husband, my former wife was cooking better. No, my former husband used to do. Why did you go to the new arrangement? The people divorced PF because they wanted better. They were told that vakashaina ta. So Tazara, if people can understand the Chinese, those of us who have worked with ministers in China and understood their policy is not to siphon, their policy is to invest. In fact, when they are dancing around that, no, the clause there was that 500 million will be put in Tazara as a commercial loan. At what terms? Do we know? Do we know the terms that the Chinese are going to refurbish Tazara? No, they are not telling us because it's probably more expensive than what Eriga Lungu was borrowing on. But the best arrangement, if I were the president, now I'm not, so when I am president, the best arrangement would have been to value Tazara as it is now. And that is used as our equity. And go to the Chinese and say, let's jointly invest in this project. You understand the concept? Mm-hmm. The Tanzanians, the Zambians get together, you value the asset and say, this is our land, this is what it's worth now, this is our investment. You friends from China, how much can you put? It will be 0. Now he's going to borrow 500 million. Don't tell me that he's going to refurbish. This is not a time for refurbishing. This is a time for speed railways. You know, you can go from Siberia to where in 3 hours. Speed planes. Now you start putting sleepers. They are even getting companies started doing speed sleepers in 2023. Don't they know anything about fast trains? I want to be in Kitwe. I don't want to get on the road. I want to be in Livingston in 1 hour. That's the investment I want to do. But when you sleep on the plane, you have no capacity to think. You can't even plan. And the president, is he the chief executive? He says he's the chief salesman. But are you telling me he's a transport officer? Because when I was minister myself, I would go to Paris, but not alone. As Secretary of Treasury, I'll have the Director of Investment. When I'm sitting in the chair like this, documents are coming from behind. Minister this, minister this. And I trust that what they push to me to refer to, they have researched. I am not Herod. I have developed a team who, when I'm resting or looking this way, they are able to work. When they come and say, Minister, sign here. Now, we have prepared this. Can you bring to the attention of the presidency? Then you take Kudiba ABC, because you can't take to the president directly. His staff have to see that it's proper for the eyes of the presidency. And he will tell you, oh, this is correct. Can we discuss this? I think the president wants you to go and see him over the issue you raised me. But this man, he's a one-man actor. That's why all the ministers are dead silent.
You have not heard of the delivery unit at State House?
Which one?
The delivery unit is a new research department.
Now you tell me, what is the minister doing? What is the PS doing? Because government is not run by politicians. Government is run by the executive, the permanent secretary, and their staff. People thought I was a very smart minister, but I had very smart staff. I mean, we had the PSs who would tell you to the face, Minister, what you are trying to do, I can't authorize. And they are still alive today. They were schooled in civil service balance and management, to the point, maybe my problem is that I was a civil servant, so I knew how government functions. But my colleague is straight from Grand Tonton to being president. So there's a challenge there. And in that challenge, you need to listen to the civil service. But this civil service, they've adulterated it with party cadres. I mean, honestly, tell me, political advisor to the president, living home. There's a young man whom I groomed in FDD. I mean, the first time he was the MP, I was involved in selecting him. He was in Cinder. Then he went to MMD. Now he's advised to the president. What has he achieved in political arena? Tell me. I mean, what politics can Levi Ngoma advise the presidency between DR Congo and Zambia, or Botswana and Zambia? Because political advisor to the president is a contact between the presidency and the other presidencies. Now tell me, if you go to President Ramaphosa's office, as Levi Ngoma, I'm the political advisor to His Excellency Hakainde Hichilema. Do they take you seriously? The kids around him don't inspire confidence in those of us who are looking. Because if I want a legal advisor, yes, I can have a young person. But there are many who have been chief justices. Chief Justice Nguluve, Chief Justice that one, Chief Justice. You can consult. If a president stands up and says to me, Kariba Dam has dried because there was no rain last year, you know what he tells me? He doesn't know. Because there are hydrologist engineers who have been in ZESCO, they are retired. They have been to each and every power station. They cannot, if the president had access to them, advise him that the dam dried, so that he made such an embarrassment of the announcement that Zimbabwe had siphoned all the water. My God. Look, I was Minister of Energy, so I know how these things work. And just for those who don't know, my studies were environmental technology and energy policy. So I understand how to load a ship in the Gulf. I understand megawatts and the marginal cost pricing of electricity. So the point I'm making is that when you say that you are adjusting prices of fuel on a daily basis, where is Mr. Kalumiana, who had been a director at Energy? Where is this virgin? He's at CC. Where are all these engineers? They are mechanical engineers trained in energy. And then you go and pick up kids on the street and say you are forming a presidential implementation team. What are they implementing? Which projects are you implementing? Are you telling? That's a show of no confidence in your ministers and your permanent secretaries. It's just meant to siphon money and give jobs to his friends and friends' children.
May we wind up, Madam Nawakwi? What
if
will
you
be
may,
your
but we can
concluding remarks?
Speak for another.
Yes, thank you. So we have about 10 minutes, but we have to wind up our conversation. And,
yes, so
yeah,
I
so
agree with you that I don't agree that CDF is a plus, because it can only be a plus if I have medicine, if I have food. So, but
the president over the weekend, as we go towards the end of our conversation, I did visit one of the trade centers, and he did allude to the fact that they are busy working. And you, as opposition political parties, are busy TikToking. What was he doing himself? We are even calling him Mr. President. For him, he was calling ECL this minion, this corrupt person. Not one day, in 20 years, did he call any president sir. Whether it was Sata, whether it was Manawasa, whether it was Arabi, Michael Sane said, this old man, illiterate man, he himself has no respect for anyone. That's why you can stand up in Kasama in front of Amwinemuluwemba and start announcing and imprintables. But it's not just in Kasama. During the campaign, he was in Pemba. And he was speaking in Tonga. I understand Tonga. Temalumbo ya bika pali ba Edgar. Ninsele shiri fisha kuti teti umuntu wafyalwa bwino. Udi obwali wakwata bafyashi atwiko mnankwe. Nga wali babwese shi apapene, you'd see the police arresting me for the same insult. Now, so when you say
we are busy criticizing him. What are we talking about? I have been very specific. His foreign policy is misguided. His economic policy is non-existent. He came in without a plan. You know,
and they have been challenging you that they have managed to restructure the debt.
But look,
an administration that is
you know
that
what?
No plan. You cannot manage to do that.
Mr. Soko, let's not fight. I did say, when we came in, we found 7 billion debt. We restructured the debt. We also produced food, fed people, opened up the country. You can't just be hanging on in Kayakuya. No, things fall apart now. That's what we're discussing here. There's no money coming from Washington. And why there's no money from Washington, let me tell you what. It's not because the numbers are that bad. It's because they've seen it through him. That he's not a leader, he's not a uniter, the money is not safe. You understand? And he's not delivering on the issues he promised. They have discovered that the Zambian people have lost confidence in him. And therefore, he has no alternative program. That's all it means. Because if you have an alternative program, they can't come and tie a noose on your neck. They will say, they are going to go that way. And let me tell you, this for nothing. And may I just say, Zambians, sisters and brothers, UPND, PF, FDD, Zambians, the defense and security, everyone, let us all understand one thing of how the West works. IMF, everywhere they have been, they have started conflicts, civil strife. They are the forerunners to the looters. I hope, Mr. Sok, you get me clear. In South America, where the IMF was working, is there any peace there? Zero. So it's not just us, I think it's Bangladesh. Now, what happens is the same anxiety that I'm raising here, and everybody's raising. There's no food, there's no food, there's no medicine, there's no transport. People are, to find one kwacha, the Bank of Zambia has squeezed the money out of the system. That's the meaning of what they've done. They've squeezed the money out of the system. When you squeeze money out of the system, it means Zanaco has no money to lend you to do the desks. That's basically what it means. So when an economy is at this level, you even print money to finance your people. The Japanese take detonators, go and blow up a bridge just to start reconstructing it so that they create jobs. Now, this government has no clue. They are trying to sort out a structural problem with a monetary solution. Now, the consequence of what is happening now, I can tell you, the West are fully aware that Zambia is well endowed with the minerals they want. And I don't know if UPND sees that. I don't know if Yakinde sees that. So what they are trying to do, IMF and their cahoots and their minions, they are trying to create civil strife in our country. So that you and I rise up against our government, we start fighting each other, and then they will come. They have been looting Congo before I was born. There's war in Eastern Congo, but they are mining and getting sugilite. They are getting tantalite, and they are making phones. Most of the minerals that are found in the factories where they make phones, they come out of Wharton, Congo. And how long have the West been there? How long has the UN been in Eastern Congo? How long? When we are fighting, they've discovered when they come walking straight door, we will say, no, we want to do it ourselves, we want factories here. So this is squeezing of Zambia, apparently, naively pushed to the corner by UPND. They've pushed our country to the corner because they didn't have a second plan. It is a deliberate attempt by the West to come in our country and start looting. And what I'm saying is not partisan. What I'm saying, brothers and sisters in UPND, PF, all of us, let's open our eyes and realize the Westerners are not our friends. They come here to loot and leave us.
The argument has been that even the PF were going to go for an IMF bailout package. And what would have FDD done in this case?
I never said that borrowing is anathema. I said you need to have a plan. All right? You need to have a plan. I personally wouldn't go to IMF because there are enough monies in the world which can be restructured otherwise. You cannot go to IMF and then you are giving the mines the interest-free royalties and all that. Look at Botswana, what Botswana has done. Where here we are saying, no, we can't run the mines. Botswana have told the De Beers, come, sit here. You've been looting our resources for time immemorial. We want 25%, not of the cash. We want you to deliver cut diamonds to us, rough diamonds. We'll sort them ourselves, we'll polish them, and we'll sell. They've also told De Beers, besides this, we want you to open up technical schools and colleges for our people. Put $750 million a year. De Beers agreed. They know the value of the mine, of mines here. But here, what do? We go to some gentleman from India who is a failure, who, look, Vedanta owes banks in South Africa colossal sums of money. They were the ones who were supposed to put our mines under. And so when the decision was made to preempt it, Hakainde thinks that is something. Look, if people fund you, I don't know whether you make a covenant to say, if you fund me for the campaign, I will give you the mine. Look, that's our asset. And I want Vedanta to be put on notice. When there's change of government, they will go. We are getting nothing. 300 jobs. What else are we getting? What else are we getting?
Corporate social responsibility.
What? I mean, didn't Kaunda build schools from copper? Didn't we, you know, copper was our breast. It was our hospital. It was our chalk. And today, someone takes my copper and gives me a mosquito net. You bloody say corporate social responsibility because someone is blunt and they cover their face in the sand? No. I am saying we as Zambians can do better. We have the defense and security. They are not at war. They can go to Masaiti and mine. We have geologists. You don't import a Canadian of Asian origin. I have Dr. Sixtus Mulenga, who is camping in Luapula. He has surveyed the area, prospected, and found manganese. We have a school of geology at the University of Zambia done by the Japanese. We want to mwe chako sapa mutwe. Mushokwena umusungu wine ukwaishire muno Afrika. Azi tusenda nemitwe. Mwantu wakwa Kristo. Shitubuke. Tuasela the country.
I wonder with this question. You politicians seem to speak the language that people want to hear, especially when you are in opposition. But when you are given a chance, you do the opposite. You've been asked several times. So why didn't you even advise the PF before they had ample time to say, you people, this is how you can run the economy better, because you seem to know a lot quite about this economy.
Let me put it this way. You say you people when you come into office. Have I been in office?
Yeah.
When I say women can do it better, then you turn and say women put each other down. So as long as you continue as our brothers on this trajectory of thinking that you're better managers, that's why the country is going down. Look at our sister in Tanzania. What's happening? Isn't it a joke that she came?
But our sister in Zambia gave up from being on a ballot paper. When probably the others would have said, well, it's Madam NAWAKWI.
No, but excuse me.
When they hope that it is your time, Madam.
Excuse me. I think that we are talking about a very serious issue. I didn't give up. I didn't give up. I'm still here because I have not given up.
But you did not file in for that election.
If I don't file in for that election, it doesn't mean I've given up. I knew if I stood, I would split votes. I didn't want Hakainde to win because I knew what was going to happen, and it has happened. Now, the question I'm asking you, what is it that our president in Tanzania is doing in terms of charming the IMF? Because for her, she's drawing down that we are not doing. They are also indebted, HIPIC. What is it? She's more transparent. There is no selective prosecution. You look, let me tell you, my brother, I have said it has nothing to do with the numbers. We can draw down any day. If the local ambassadors and high commissioners can start to send positive notes to their hometowns that in Zambia, democracy is flourishing, the president is tolerant, he's not insecure, they always look this way and draw if you don't score on one sheet. Because it's a long score sheet. And they are telling you that Zambia has scored on a long score sheet. The challenge we have is that this man doesn't understand the processes. So when they sign, he starts dancing at the airport, I'm the first, I'm the first. Now they've signed the staff paper. It's, oh no, congratulations. They are congratulating each other. But the process, staff paper, is like you here at Camnet. You sign something with ZNBC. You still have to bring to management here for them to take to the board. And the board, the management is a management team which includes Georgina. After they do it, they take it to the board. They are not the final say. So you cannot meet the director of the World Bank and IMF and say, please, quick disbursement. No, you meet the others. So what is it that we are not doing? What we are not doing is that we are insecure. The leader is very insecure. He doesn't like competition, wrongful detention. I mean, I don't know how many times Sean Tembo has been detained. How can you detain the same person 1 million times? And this is a person who was in detention himself. He knows how hard it is. And he keeps on detaining everyone, detain, prosecute, mwaba. Is it one item on the agenda? They only had IMF as their only solution. So for me, I can tell you what I can advise them, since you want me to advise them, is that agriculture is a solution, one. And how is it a solution? It's not this current arrangement where they say emerging farmers must go and borrow money from the banks. You know what they have done? I came here and told them that go to Africa Development Bank. You saw the president of Africa Development Bank come hardly 2 weeks after we had spoken. Thank you very much. Our president from Africa Development Bank came. But emergency funds which were given to Zambia, just $5 million. They can draw, if they have smart kids in the ministry, up to $150 million. Grants. Now, what are they doing with that $5 million? They have done a long sheet of conditions. You have to form a cooperative. Each member has to pay 300 kwacha. You take it to the district agriculture committee. The district agriculture committee evaluates, takes to Zanaco or any other bank. The bank evaluates. Then they send it to the bank sends to the ministry for approval. Now understand bikatuma document to ministry for approval. Then the ministry authorizes the bank to approve. Now, that's $5 million from ADB. They say for all the 10 provinces, which means it's $250,000 per province, isn't it? Mm-hmm. How much kwacha is that? That's roughly about 5 million kwacha. Now, you are telling me that a constituency has 28 million, and for agriculture fund, a whole province has 5 million. Does that show seriousness in terms of agriculture? The conditions are that money will never be drawn this season. And yet it's supposed to be emergency funding for agriculture. If I were them, I would have taken that 5 million, call the commercial farmers and say, hey, we have hunger next year. Like I suggested, here is money, buy fertilizer, do irrigation, buy everything. I want from each one of you people who have center pivots, to have 10,000 tons of milk. The commercial farmers can help us. But the way they've kept the money, and I know the way UPN they are working, they'll start sharing it. Those people in those small committees, in fact, they will raise more money from the 300 kwacha contribution than the fund itself. Because now they are telling everyone there's money to borrow from the banks, but there's $250,000 US per each province. Is that seriousness? So you want me to start no, me, I'm not.
You also added the private, the banking sector to complement the agriculture program through the loan provision. We saw him meeting with heads of banking institutions in the country, and that should be last week or last of last week, and that is to complement the agriculture credit window.
But I'm telling you, it's on my phone here, from Pika. I have the conditions. You are meeting the banks, and you have $250,000 for each province. You are wasting their time, and you want the bank to take a document to Mutoro for approval. You want the CEO for the bank, the entire Zanaco director, the CEO for Zanaco. In the bank, we have all the loans officer, they do their evaluation and what and what. And this is a bank which has 80%, a loan which has 80% risk. So it will be, when you put a risk of 80%, so what is available is like $6 million, all right? Now, you're telling me now that Zanaco, who has an agricultural office with qualified young men and women who can sit and do cash flows, are stupid. When they approve, they should take to Mutoro. What has Mutoro proved to be? These are some of the ministers whom we should have fired a long time ago. But you see, he will fall down with them. The story of Herod. He tells people, dance for me. They start saying, God, God. On the final day of reckoning, when the angel was smiting him, they were dead. And worms started coming out of, he died in the chair. And look, God forbid, these are just similes and comparisons, but we are living in Herod's time right now. The insecurity, the lack of understanding, the person, fear of competition makes me feel that Zambia is entered Herod's time.
Madam Nawakwi, we would like to thank you for finding time to be with us.
Thank you very much for having me. And I want to conclude. The lifeline for Zambia is not outside. It's right here. In Wengwa, in Nakonde, in Muchinga. The minerals that God has given us, that's our lifeline. We shouldn't beg. We need to wear our boots. The day Hakainde wears his overalls and says he's not traveling, he's going to camp with ZNS at a manganese mine or a sugilite mine, I will close my notes and say, may I please have boots and an overall? I want to go and camp with my president. But the more he continues to fly around like a butterfly, he's risking the security of this country by creating 18 million hungry stomachs.
Well, our dear viewers, this is where we have to call it a day. I've been in conversation with the Forum for Democracy President, Madam EDITH NAWAKWI, who has been helping me to discuss the topic pertaining to Zambia's political, social and economic matters. Until next time when we meet again on National Matters, this has been Patrick Soko. Remember to always keep it on Cabinet TV, not just another channel.